He didn't look me in the eye that day. That's how I knew something was wrong. My son is the kind of boy who smiles with his whole body, even his eyelashes lift when he laughs. But when I picked him up from his grandmother's house that afternoon, he barely mumbled hello. He sat in the back seat, buckling his belt slower than usual. The quiet kind of slow. The kind that lets silence build. I tried asking about his day. Did he finish his Lego rocket? Did Grandma let him have cookies before dinner again? But his answers were short. Cold. Like he was trying to feel nothing. It wasn't until we were halfway home that he said it. Grandma said you're not my real mom. I don't remember driving the rest of the way. I must have made it home safely, no sirens, no accidents, but I don't remember it. My hands tightened around the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. My chest was a fist. I looked at him in the rearview mirror, and he just stared out the window. Not angry. Not sad. Just confused. Like someone had handed him a puzzle that didn't make sense but insisted it was the truth. I parked in the driveway and turned around in my seat. I wanted to say something comforting, something powerful, something that would wrap around him like a shield and undo whatever damage she had just done. But nothing came. Because what do you say to a child who has just had their entire understanding of home twisted by someone they were supposed to trust? We always planned to tell him. He was adopted, yes, but loved from the very first moment I laid eyes on him. The kind of love that never asks for proof. I knew every freckle on his shoulder, every silly dance he made up when he brushed his teeth. I was there when he first walked, first got sick, first wrote the word mom in a crayon scrawl on a birthday card. He didn't come from my body. But he was mine. Heart deep, soul deep, sleepless night deep. And we had always promised we'd tell him that truth one day, together. On our terms. With care. She took that from me. When I asked him what else she said, he didn't want to talk about it. He looked out the window and said, "She said you lied to me. She said I should ask where I came from." He was 8. 8 years old. Too young to understand legal papers and family court and medical files and why someone would weaponize a bloodline like a dagger. But old enough to understand betrayal. To feel it in his gut. That night, after he went to sleep, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried without making a sound. Not just because I was hurt, I'd expected my mother-in-law to cross lines. She'd been pushing since day one. Backhanded comments. Accidental remarks about heritage. Passive-aggressive gifts like ancestry kits and photo albums filled with people who shared none of my son's features. But this? This was beyond cruelty. This was surgical. And what broke me most wasn't her cruelty. It was the crack in his voice when he said it. As if something so deep could be questioned by one sentence from someone who'd never changed his diapers, never waited up with him through fevers, never sung lullabies off-key until he finally drifted off. My husband was quiet when I told him. Too quiet. He sighed. Rubbed his forehead. Said, "She shouldn't have done that. I'll talk to her." Talk to her? That's when I knew. He didn't see it for what it was. But I did. This wasn't about her. This was about me. And how far I was willing to go to protect what I knew was real, even if it meant walking away from the house that held my name but no longer held my true. She had always been careful with her words, not kind, not warm, but careful. The kind of woman who knew how to dress poison as politeness. From the first day I met her, I could tell she didn't think I measured up. Not because of who I was, but because of who I wasn't. I wasn't her idea of a real mother. I didn't share her son's eyes, her family tree, or her blood. She tolerated me, never welcomed me. And after we adopted Liam, the tolerance turned to something quieter, sharper. The signs had been there for years. I remember once, on Liam's 5th birthday, she gave him a scrapbook filled with baby photos, but not of him. Of his father. "You're so lucky," she said, "to be part of this bloodline. Strong genes. She looked right at me when she said it. I smiled then. Bit down on my tongue. I told myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But of course she did. Another time, I caught her whispering to Liam about what color his hair would have been if he'd come from you. I didn't say anything then either. I took him for ice cream and pretended it didn't bother me. I let it go because I believed what I had with my son was unshakable. That it lived in the small things, the way he clung to my hand at night, the way he said Mom even when he didn't need anything, just to feel me close. I believed love was enough. But the truth is, even love can be wounded when someone whispers often enough that it's not real. When I told my husband what she had said, he looked like a man stuck between two fires and trying to breathe smoke. He didn't defend her, exactly. But he didn't defend me either. Just kept saying, she was probably confused, and she comes from a different generation, and the line I've grown to hate most, she means well. No. She didn't. You don't mean well when you rip open a child's sense of identity out of spite. You don't mean well when you ruin the moment a mother has planned for years, the moment to tell her child the truth not with shame or secrecy, but with pride and tenderness. After dinner, Liam wouldn't come out of his room. I knocked gently, told him I loved him. He said, okay, but his voice was hollow. That night, he didn't ask me to tuck him in. And that was the moment. That tiny rejection, born of confusion, not anger, hit me harder than all her words combined. I had spent years building a world where he never had to question whether he was wanted. And now one careless sentence had knocked the bricks loose. So I opened the drawer. The one with the documents. The finalized adoption decree. The certificate. The letter from his birth mother, handwritten, thanking us for giving him what I couldn't at the time, a full life. I held the papers in my lap, my fingers tracing the seal. Not because I needed to prove anything to myself. But because I knew, deep down, I might need to prove something to someone else soon. Not in a courtroom. But in a hallway. In a bedroom. In a moment where a little boy looked up and asked, "Are you really my mom?" I looked at the door to Liam's room. Then at the hallway that led to the master bedroom, where my husband lay, quiet and complicit. I suddenly felt like a guest in a home I had helped build. And that's when I knew. If they weren't going to protect what we had, then I would. Even if it meant walking away with nothing but the truth in my hands. I stopped speaking much after that night. Not in some dramatic, Cold War way, more like I had finally realized that my words were wasting their breath in a house full of people who only listened when it was convenient. My husband started to notice. He'd ask how my day was, and I'd just say fine. He'd kiss the top of my head before bed, and I'd pretend to be asleep. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something quieter. Something heavier. Liam was still distant. Not cruel, not cold, just hesitant. Like every sentence had to pass through a new filter now. Is this woman telling me the truth? I could feel him studying me sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking. His eyes darted toward me when I packed his lunch, or helped with homework, or brushed the hair from his forehead while he pretended not to enjoy it. He was trying to match the person in front of him with the doubts whispered in his ear. I didn't blame him. I blamed her. And I blamed myself for giving her the opportunity, for not seeing it coming sooner. The house felt different. The walls had become tight, the air stale. Her presence lingered like perfume long after she was gone. I kept waiting for my husband to do something, to say something. I waited for him to stand up, to show me with more than words that he understood what had been lost. But instead, he kept suggesting dinner at her house. Kept brushing it off. She didn't mean to hurt him, he said. She just doesn't know how to communicate. Yes, she did. She knew exactly how to communicate. She said it directly, with precision, to a child too young to defend the love he was given. So I made my decision. I pulled the old duffel bag from the back of the closet and started quietly packing the essentials, not out of fear, but out of clarity. 1 toothbrush. A few pairs of jeans. His favorite stuffed bear, worn at the ear. The folder with the adoption papers went in last. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam doors. I waited until the house was still, my husband asleep in the bedroom, Liam curled under his superhero blanket, and I stood in the hallway between them and decided which kind of pain I was willing to carry. The kind where I stayed and let my role be questioned. Or the kind where I left and made damn sure he never questioned it again. I chose the second. That night, I wrote a note. Simple. Not bitter. Just honest. I need him to know who I am, and I need to do that somewhere safe. I love you both, but I can't stay in a house where my motherhood is negotiable. I left it on the kitchen counter, under his coffee mug. I didn't know how he'd take it. I didn't know if he'd follow me, or defend me, or resent me. But I knew he wouldn't stop me. Not really. That's the thing about passive people, they don't hold doors open, but they don't close them either. I carried Liam to the car still asleep, his head on my shoulder, the way he used to nap as a toddler. His small fingers curled into my shirt out of habit. And in that moment, I remembered everything that mattered. His first fever. His first nightmare. The way he'd once said, "I'm glad you're my mom. You do it good." No whispered lie could erase that. No twisted narrative could make that less real. I drove through the night. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just drove, with my son in the back seat and the truth tucked into a folder beside me. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, walls the color of off-brand vanilla, and a kitchen faucet that made a high-pitched whine when turned too fast. But it was mine. Still in my name after all these years. I'd rented it before I met my husband, back when I was still chasing freelance jobs and surviving off black coffee and frozen meals. I never thought I'd return to it with a child, but that morning, when I walked back through the door carrying Liam's backpack and a folder full of legal proof, it felt more like home than the house I had just left behind. Liam woke up around 9. He sat up slowly on the couch where I'd tucked him in, blinking at the unfamiliar walls. For a second, I saw it, the panic, the fear of being moved again. I knelt in front of him, close enough that he could feel my voice, not just hear it. "I brought you here because I needed to keep us safe," I said. "And because I need you to remember that I'm your mom. No matter what anyone says. No matter who tries to confuse that." He stared at me for a long time. Then nodded. We didn't talk about it again that day. Instead, I took him grocery shopping. We picked out cereal and snacks. I let him choose a poster for his new room, a glowing solar system map that reminded me of his curiosity, the way he used to fall asleep pointing to Saturn and whispering facts he barely understood. We stopped at a bookstore and I bought him a new notebook. "For anything you want," I told him. He scribbled something on the first page before I could look. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the folder. The papers were still there. The final adoption decree. The notarized statement of parental rights. The letter from his birth mother, gentle, loving, handwritten in loops and swirls. I'd read it 100 times. But this time, I placed it in an envelope with Liam's name on it. Not to give to him yet, but soon. When he asked for the truth, it would be ready. I didn't hear from my husband the first day. Or the second. On the third, I got a voicemail. He didn't sound angry, just stunned. Tired. He said he hadn't told his mother yet. That he didn't know how. That she'd been asking where Liam was. That she felt terrible. I listened once, then deleted it. He didn't ask how Liam was doing. She showed up on the 4th day. I heard the knock before I saw the car. She was standing at the front door, dressed too nice for a weekday. Lipstick sharp. Smile forced. I didn't open the door. I didn't need to. She called through it anyway. You're being ridiculous, she said. You're hurting him more by doing this. You're punishing everyone over one conversation. I didn't answer. You think running away makes you a better mother, she snapped. He's going to resent you for this. Still, I stayed silent. Her voice cracked at the edges, part frustration, part disbelief. I wondered if she realized, in that moment, that I wasn't the version of myself she'd been picking at all these years. I was something she'd never truly understood. I wasn't reacting. I was protecting. Eventually she left. And when Liam came home from school that afternoon, I was there, snack ready, shoes by the door, a warm hug waiting. He didn't say much. But when I handed him his notebook, he smiled. And when he opened the front cover, I saw what he had written. This is my mom. The real one. It was a Wednesday night when he finally asked me. We were sitting on the floor of his new room, building a model of a space shuttle from a kit I'd bought the day we moved in. He had the tiny wing pieces in his lap, concentrating hard the way he always did when something mattered. And then, without looking up, he said, "Can I ask you something, but not if it makes you sad?" I set the instruction sheet down slowly. You can ask me anything, I said. Even if it makes me cry. He nodded once. Then, after a beat, he said, "Is it true?" I didn't have to ask what he meant. I took a long breath and sat cross-legged beside him. He kept his eyes on the shuttle but stopped working on it. Yes, I said. You came to me a different way. But I am your mom. That's the truth. He was quiet for a while, like he was sorting through something in his mind that didn't quite have words yet. Then he said, "So, you didn't grow me?" "No," I said. "But I grew for you. I became a mom because I met you." He looked at me then. Really looked. "Did you want me? Or did someone make you?" That one hit deep. But I didn't let my voice shake. "I wanted you more than I've ever wanted anything," I said. "We chose you. I chose you. Every single day." He nodded again, slower this time. Then he whispered, "Okay," and started attaching the wing. I didn't push the conversation. I didn't ask if he was okay, or what else he'd been told. I just sat there, holding the instructions, helping him build something small and complicated with our hands, the same way I'd been doing since he was a baby. Quietly. Repetitively. Steadily. Later that night, I pulled the envelope from the drawer and handed it to him. "This is from your birth mom," I said. "You don't have to open it tonight. But when you want to, it's yours." He held it gently. Didn't open it. Just placed it on his nightstand and whispered, "Thanks." We didn't talk about it again for the rest of the week. But I saw it in him, the shift. The way he leaned into me again without hesitation. The way he laughed louder when I tickled him. The way he called out "Mom" from the other room, not like he was testing it, but like he had decided. He was coming back to me, not out of habit, but out of certainty. The next time his grandmother called, I didn't answer. Neither did he. She left a voicemail pretending nothing had happened. Said she missed him. Said she bought him a new Lego set. I deleted it. I didn't tell him she called. I didn't need to. He was building something better now, not with plastic bricks, but with truth. One evening, as I folded laundry, he walked into the room and asked, "Why did you leave? Why didn't you just yell at her?" I paused, then sat on the edge of the bed. "Because yelling wouldn't have changed anything," I said. "And I didn't want to stay in a place where someone thought I had to explain why I was your mother." He looked at me for a long time. Then, quietly, "I'm glad you left. I didn't like being there after." I smiled, pulled him into my arms, and said, "Me either." That night, as he slept, I looked around the room. The small shelves filled with books. His backpack hanging on the chair. The notebook on the desk with doodles in the margins. A home built not with bricks, but with belief. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something deep and unshakable. He didn't just believe me again. He belonged to me again. Time didn't rush to heal anything. It moved slowly, like it was testing me, making sure I meant what I said when I told my son I would protect us. But I welcomed the pace. It gave me room to rebuild, piece by piece, without the noise of apologies I never received and explanations that never came. Every week in that apartment felt like breathing deeper than I had in years. I didn't go back. Not to the house. Not to the dynamic. Not to the version of myself that tiptoed around other people's comfort at the cost of my own. My husband called again. This time, not to ask where I was, but to say he wanted to visit. Alone. Without his mother. We met at a park. Liam played nearby, kicking a soccer ball against a tree, while his father and I sat on a bench just out of earshot. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. Deflated. Like a man who had finally realized that avoiding conflict didn't stop destruction, it just handed the match to someone else. She says she didn't mean to hurt anyone, he said. I smiled faintly. Of course she didn't. I told her she couldn't see Liam unless she apologized to both of you. I turned toward him. That part was new. And did she? He hesitated. No, he said. She thinks you overreacted. I nodded. It wasn't surprising. That woman would sooner deny gravity than admit she overstepped. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I'm filing for primary custody, I said quietly. You'll have access. But he's staying with me. He looked at me, stunned. You don't have to do that. Yes, I said. I do. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. I needed it on paper, not just for courts, but for clarity. For Liam. So there would be no more whispers, no more confusion, no more backdoors into our peace. When he left, I stayed at the park. Liam ran to me, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. I handed him his water bottle and pulled him close, inhaling the scent of summer in his hair. I had fought for that peace, not with shouting, not with slamming doors, but with something stronger, leaving. Leaving the house. Leaving the silence. Leaving the question marks behind. The hearing came and went. It wasn't dramatic. I had the documents. I had the home. I had the history. His father didn't fight it. Maybe he finally saw what I had known all along, that love isn't proven through blood, or names, or old furniture passed down through guilt. It's proven in presence. In consistency. In truth. And truth was on my side. The day the order came through, I opened the envelope with steady hands. Legal custody. Sole authority on decisions. Full protection against interference. I held it like I had once held the adoption certificate. Not as a weapon. As a promise. Liam and I celebrated with milkshakes and bad movies. We stayed up too late and danced to old songs in the living room. And when he fell asleep on the couch, his head on my lap, I looked down at him and whispered something I never got the chance to say that night in the car when everything started to fall apart. You were always mine. Weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Her words were cold, formal. A mixture of excuses and veiled regrets. She said she'd miss him deeply. That she'd pray for reconciliation one day. I didn't reply. Because I hadn't just taken the papers with me when I left. I took back my voice. I took back my name. And most importantly, I took back my son, not from her arms, but from her shadow.